So you're the president of Fresnans Against Fracking. Fracking is hydraulic fracturing, I think?
Right. The fracturing of oil wells to break oil-bearing rock, oil shale, and free up the oil to get it out. So it's scraping the bottom of the petroleum barrel and getting the last petroleum out of the rock. It's done with high-pressure water, engines that compress the water to hundreds of pounds per square inch, and often it's done with sand and other chemicals to get the oil out of the rock, and the sand is called a proppant. It props open the cracks, the oil runs out, then the fracking water comes back up along with other water there. Produced water is about 9 gallons of produced water for every gallon of oil they get out. So it's getting the last oil.
And then, so the oil would obviously go for energy purposes or things like that.
Oh yeah, to a refinery.
What happens to those 9 gallons of water?
Well, Fresnans Against Fracking put together a film that's available, crude beyond belief, that explains what they're doing in Kern County. They don't really quite know what to do with it. They're putting it in ponds. Some are lined, some are unlined. It's a company called Valley Water, and the dirty water runs down into sprinklers. It's sprinkled over the soil that has salt-tolerant plants on it, non-native plants. That's dangerous because it washes down into finally the Kern River and pollutes our water. So they don't really quite know. Well, what they want to do is inject it deep underground in old oil wells. All of this costs money. They do different things with it.
Oh, no, so they don't try to. Are they trying to reuse it again for hydraulic fracturing again, or just keeping it?
No, usually they don't reuse it because it's dirty and it would dirty the equipment. They'd rather use fresh river water. Recently, Monterey County voted to ban fracking in Monterey County in the last election, and part of the anti-fracking measure was that they had to clean up all their water. So now they're going to have to treat that water as they would in a water treatment plant, which will be expensive. We'll see if they really want to do that, or if they want to just be part of the conversion to safer forms of energy.
So what brought on? How did you get involved with Fresnans Against Fracking? You're the president now. When did you get?
Well, there was a major meeting that I didn't attend, where they had a film and speakers on fracking. They had a big group of people. We have a large phone list. But I didn't get involved until I went to a meeting at Miacuppa in the Tower District that was hosted by Credo Action. And they wanted to get an anti-fracking group together in Fresno. And shortly after that, the group is joined by the legal advisor of the Sierra Club, legal chair Gary Lasky, and he led the group. And we're getting involved with other organizations around the state that are opposed to fracking, such as Food and Water Watch, Center for Biological Diversity, and so forth. So I attended and got involved.
Okay, so the water that is used to get the oil out for, or the bottom of the barrel oil, I've seen videos of people lighting water coming out of their faucets on fire. Is that? I take it this water is not drinkable or usable for like human consumption after it's.
No, it isn't. It would have to go through a lot of purification, maybe reverse osmosis or something. Some of it is being used in Kern County to irrigate crops, and a lot of it is totally unusable for irrigation because it has a lot of salt in it, and salt makes soil unusable for agriculture. So some of the lesser salt water is used for irrigation. It's much cheaper than other sources of water from canals and so forth. So you were wondering what they're going to do or how they're purifying the water?
Well, I mean, I don't know that they. You say they're keeping it in ponds, or
Yeah,
lined or unlined, and so They're not putting the water back into like use for the public because they can't.
No, it probably won't be. But there is a concern, though. Some of it will get into our water supplies. Some of what they were doing, they're actually injecting it into clean water aquifers, or aquifers that may not have been perfectly clean, but it would have been able to be cleaned at lower cost, and they were destroying these sources of water. And they should be regulated by California's Department of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, but we need to keep them on the job and make sure they're not too cozy with the oil industry. So we're only now beginning to look at what they're doing, think about what they're doing, and see that a lot of it's not good, and it may contaminate our water.
And yes, and you brought a picture today of an explosion for when a train is
Right.
transporting oil.
Oh, your question was about lighting faucets on fire.
Yes.
I missed that question.
Oh, yes.
I'll try to answer both. The video of lighting water from a faucet on fire came from a film called Gasland. That's where it was publicized. And that was from Pennsylvania. They're doing a tremendous amount of fracking in Pennsylvania. Right next door in New York, they've outlawed all fracking. So that's something that can be done at a state-by-state level or a county-by-county level. The fracking in Pennsylvania is for natural gas. Here in California, the fracking is for petroleum. And the natural gas fracking led to the mixing of this natural gas with well water. And that's why they could light the gas coming out of their faucets. So there's a lot of water pollution going on in Pennsylvania, and that's a good example of the harm that fracking can do. When you asked about the explosion, America has become a petroleum self-sufficient country now because of the extensive use of fracking in North Dakota, the Bakken oil fields. They'd like to ship it out of there by pipeline to refineries, but until more pipelines are built, which we want to stop because we should be letting our oil infrastructure decay and not invest a lot of money in it because we need to make the shift to safer forms of energy, sustainable energy, solar energy, wind energy. We're doing that. We need to do even more of it and forget about oil. But until the pipelines are built, they're shipping the oil in tank cars. And these are very dangerous because in order to get the oil that comes out of the ground in North Dakota is thick, viscous, and to get it in and out of the tank cars, they're mixing it with volatile materials, other oil, that is more explosive. And it comes out of the ground with these volatile materials, and it's highly explosive. So they're running trains down tracks, some near cities and near where people live, and if they have a derailment, which happens every once in a while, maybe every couple of months, if they're running a lot of these trains, they'll have a derailment, and the metal cars striking against the metal tracks create sparks. They light up the oil, and then it explodes. If it happens in between cities in a wild area, it won't kill people, but about 2.5 years ago, I think it was, in Lac-Mégantic, Canada, one of the oil trains went off the track, exploded, and 47 people were killed. So it's dangerous.
And that's the picture we have there, yes, Robert?
There was the mushroom cloud explosion of this explosive fracked oil that comes out of the oil shale.
And that was in Canada, Quebec,
yes.
You say? Huh. I see these round cars on trains here in Fresno passing through. Are those filled with oil, do you think, or is that not?
No, we haven't seen a lot of these oil trains coming through Fresno. We don't really have a refinery between the oil-producing areas that they would need to come through Fresno. They did want to bring oil to San Luis Obispo, where they have a refinery. Fresnans Against Fracking got involved in that. We went over to San Luis Obispo, joined many other organizations around the state, and expressed our opposition at public hearings. We could speak. Oil industry people spoke. Many mayors and fire chiefs along the route of the train spoke and said, "We don't want this coming through our town." The law specifies that a city cannot say, "We don't want this type of thing coming through our town." That's a matter of federal railroad regulations, because they don't want a patchwork of regulations that would stop the trains from going different places. So we needed to stop it at the destination. They were asking the Planning Commission for a railroad spur near the refinery to expand the railroad and allow more trains to be parked to bring in all this oil. They were planning on bringing 500-car oil trains per week down the coast through San Jose and so forth to San Luis Obispo. This would be a tremendous risk, as we all realize, and to bring it close to these population centers. The local Planning Commission in San Luis Obispo recommended against it. And it did violate certain endangered species provisions, and so where they'd have to make exceptions to do it. But the City Council at first voted to favor the oil spur extension, but lawsuits are brought up, and in the end now it's dead, and they're not going to make the expansion. So they won't be bringing those explosive oil trains down the California coast.
Oh, that's good. So that's a victory. Fresnans against
right.
fracking.
We had a part in it.
Yes. So I think there's the Facebook group for Fresnans Against Fracking has 344 members when I checked just now. You guys, where do you meet? How can people get involved?
The best way to get involved would be to come to our meetings. We meet every month at the Marie Callender's restaurant near Fresno State at Shaw and Cedar. Come at 6:30 and order some food. We try to get the meeting going at 7, and we'll have an agenda and try to wrap things up around 9 or so, and we discuss actions that are going on around the state, things that we can get involved in, and you'll be able to find out what we're doing there. The next big action will probably be in April, the day before Earth Day, Friday. Well, that's Earth Day, Friday, April 21st. The group we're getting more active in, California Environmental Justice Coalition, is inviting groups to join them at a demonstration at the EPA building in San Francisco on that day. We're thinking about what we'll do, how we'll get members up there to join that demonstration to express our support of the EPA and its continued work to protect us.
That's very... it's a bright light and otherwise dim.
Yeah.
People keep it's reassuring to hear that you guys actually had a victory along the coast with the trains, and it shows that people coming together can actually make a difference.
Our politicians are responsive to when we rise up and express ourselves.
Yes. Is there anything I've missed, sir, that you would like to expound further upon?
Well, the day after the demonstration in San Francisco, we'll be celebrating Earth Day Fresno. That's last year it was at Radio Park. I'm pretty certain they're planning to do it at Radio Park again this year. Progressive environmental groups around Fresno will showcase what they're doing. It's a fun day. You ought to plan on coming out that Saturday. And an important thing to know about Fresnans Against Fracking is that it's a committee of the Sierra Club. It's the Sierra Club's Energy Committee. And I'm on the executive committee of the local Sierra Club chapter, the Tehipite chapter of the Sierra Club. And we can get some funding and support for travel expenses and so forth from the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club's a good environmental organization. We encourage everyone to join, $25 a year. We have general public meetings which you may want to attend. They're in the UC building, which is across Shaw from Fashion Fair. And most months, except we take off a couple of months in the summer and maybe December for Christmas, but most of the third Wednesdays of each month at 7 o'clock, the Sierra Club has a general membership meeting where you can come and hear a presentation on maybe the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, or someone coming from the Sierra Club Desert Committee talking about environmental problems in California's desert, or maybe a travelogue. We had a couple presenting their travels in the Pacific Ocean on their own boat, and just lots of very interesting things at the general meeting. And then at the beginning of the meeting, you'll hear announcements about ways you can get involved in actions to protect the environment.
And so the Sierra Club has a website. We could probably search on that for the local chapter.
Yes.
Probably sierraclub.org or something.
sierraclub.org/Tehipite. Use Google if I don't have it exact. And we have a newsletter that comes out quarterly, and that newsletter will be accessible at the website. Articles on the environment, our national forests, national parks, what's going on, what to watch out for, legislation, and so forth.
And you said the day after Earth Day, or the Earth Day in Fresno, Radio Park. Is that the park next to Fresno Art Museum, or?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
In fact, last year, the Fresno Art Museum opened up their theater, and we showed environmental films all day during Earth Day.
And I think your film you mentioned earlier, Crude Beyond Belief, is available on the internet now, on CMAC?
Yes. Go to the CMAC website and put in the title, Crude Beyond Belief, and it'll direct you to where it is on YouTube. Or I guess you could go right to YouTube and look for Crude Beyond Belief. It's a 43-minute film. It is basically, it's different from some other environmental films. It centers on one expert, Tom France, who is an environmentalist in Kern County. He leads a group there called the Association of Irritated Residents, or AIR. He's very concerned about air quality and water quality issues, and he took us on a tour and showed us the sites where the oil industry is dirtying our water and our air, and now it's on film, and you can see it in Crude Beyond Belief.
That's very exciting. That's necessary.
Yeah.
That was locally made, yes? Probably with...
Yeah, locally made right there at CMAC. We got a grant from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and from Credo Action. And most of that was the expenses of CMAC, and they made a nice film. I showed it at the Merced Sierra Club group, and they said, why isn't this on public television? Maybe you could distribute it widely. So we'll look into more outlets for places where people can see it and see what the oil industry is doing to us.
That's exciting, sir. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience before we part ways for this particular interview?
Well, we're all concerned about dirtying our water and our air, and that's an immediate concern. But we're also very concerned about what we're doing to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren 7 generations out, and the global climate change problem. By continuing to burn petroleum, we're roasting our planet by filling it with carbon dioxide. The methane that's released is 85 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is. Now that will break down in about a century, and it'll break down to carbon dioxide. But then you've got all this carbon dioxide in the air, warming the planet. It may seem like no big deal that the planet gets 1 or 2 degrees warmer, but think about the massive amount of heat that it takes to raise the planetary temperature by 1 degree or 2 degrees. And we're doing that. We're seeing that happening already. And it'll change ocean current patterns, air current patterns. It will lead to more droughts and floods instead of the more consistent rainfall we've had. It'll make our agricultural lands unproductive due to drought. It'll lead to famine and so forth. Why on earth are we inflicting this on our descendants? Let's stop burning our petroleum now. Switch to, where the technology is here, for wind energy and solar energy. We can switch now. We ought to make it a matter of as high a priority as we did during World War II when the nation geared up for fighting the Nazis. We should gear up to move to alternative energy, and think of the jobs it would create. It would be wonderful. So get involved. Come to our meetings.
Yes, that's a great message of hope, sir. Thank you for coming on. If you guys want to be a part of Fresno Against Fracking, join the group on Facebook or go to Marie Callender's on Shaw Cedar and be a part of the meeting. 6:30 and 7 is when the meeting starts?
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
And thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Come back anytime. We'll see you guys when we come back.